Hey, what's up? A lot of people wonder, what do you do when you're not fishing Elite Series tournaments? Well, when I'm not out there on the Bassmaster Elite Series Tour, I'm usually working in missile baits because that's what I do, do that. But if I do get out on the water, there's always video to shoot, and the fun part is I'll always find some lures to test. So I'm gonna test 4 new lures while we go out here. So you're gonna have to check out those lures, see what I use when I go out here on the water. I mean, you know, I've been designing lures for over 10 years. I've got well over 20 different baits that I've personally designed and tested on the market. So hopefully I'll know what I'm talking about when I'm testing these new baits out here, but we'll show you what those are all about here in just a second. Here we are. Here, the first thing I like to do when I go to test baits, I find a quiet cove, as quiet as possible, out of the wind. The lake that we're at here today, pretty dirty. This is the cleanest water I can find, but that's okay, we'll make it work. But here are the 4 baits. I got 3 swim baits and 1 rattle bait. Now the rattle bait is, this is a bait from Spro. It's called the Wameku Shad, designed by Shin Fukai. And this is just a red one. It's a lipless bait, but it's got 2 different line ties. And he said that the front line ties for shallower water, a little tighter vibration, and the back one is for deeper water, harder vibration. And we'll see what that's all about. It's a 70 millimeters long. That's what that denotes. But the second bait this is called the Babe swim bait. And this is, they supposedly bought the mold of one of the hardest swim baits to find in life because they quit making it. This is the Bass Pro Shops, the swimmer. You know, Steve Kennedy would beat me up in order to get this right here. These things are extremely hard to find. Here's one brand new in the package, but this, as you can see, it's pretty dang close. The eyes are a little bit different, but everything else on it seems to be, I mean, almost identical. And they're both lined through swim baits. So we're gonna mess around with that, see exactly how this thing runs. It seems really, really soft. So I'm kind of curious to see how that, it's called the Babe. And then this is the Hogfather Junior by Tater Hog. Tater Hog's in North Carolina. He makes some beautiful swim baits, top water baits, and all kind of cool stuff. But this is the Hogfather Junior. I was told this thing is really hot, a really good bait. I like glide baits in this size range. It's really good for tournament fishing, and that's kind of right up my alley. So that's why I'm gonna check out the Hogfather Junior. And then this is a bait. This is I think a lot of people would know it. It is the Megabass Mag Draft. Mag being that it's got a magnet in the belly to which the hook will stick to, and it doesn't freely swing, it just sticks to that. So when the fish bite it, they can pull it off of that magnet, and then there's a barrel swivel there that can, you know, the hook can rotate, and the bait actually lasts a lot, you know, for a lot of fish. And I'm really curious to see how this thing, I think it's a slow retrieve. It's got some good weight to it, but you know, this is the smaller size, and curious to see how that one's gonna go. So first things first, get up to the Wameku Shad here. Get out here, and first thing I like to do is just pull it through the water and watch it real close. I don't go casting it and firing it around. I want to see it in the water. And then again, this is on the front line tie. Definitely a more subtle vibration. Yeah, very subtle vibration on that front line tie. I like it. Real subtle. That can be really good. You know, Lake Gunnersville, and I mean, shoot, any lake in the South in the springtime, a lipless bait can be absolutely killer, but the lakes get pounded with these hard, loud, vibrating baits. This is not, it's got some rattle to it, but it's not super loud. I don't know if you can hear it. You can hear it. So it's not super loud, but I kind of like it. It's a nice steady vibration. But before I go casting it, I want to undo it. This is the, it's got the Spro Tournament snap on it. So these are really tough. I cannot get these things undone with my bare hands. So it takes pliers to get these things off. Got it now. I'm gonna just move it from that front, to the back. I bet you this thing's gonna thump a whole lot harder. So let's get this bad boy on there. Get it. You can close it with your hand, but it's hard to open it with your hand. Yeah, a lot harder vibration there. That's more like the Wameku Shad is a lipless bait that Spro makes, and it's got a really hard thump. It's real distinct, real loud. When these fish are aggressive, that's definitely a harder thump on that back one. It sits nose down a little bit more as well when it comes through the water. Interesting. All right, I'm gonna stand up. It's kind of shallow. It's only a couple feet back here, but see how it casts like a rock. Most lipless baits do. Just on a steady retrieve, I can feel it hitting real hard. I mean, there's a bunch of good lipless baits out there. Like I mentioned, the Wameku Shad already. Obviously, the tried and true rattle trap. Now, when it's on its back hook, I would say it runs, I don't know, there's nothing like it. It runs really nose down. Very interesting. I bet you that thing will, I mean, it's running on the back hook hanger, it's running almost vertical as it's coming through the water, so it'll keep the hooks away from the bottom, and I'll bet you it'll be able to, snag grass and stuff like that. It'll be able to do that really good, to be able to come through the cover and not get snagged up as much. I know like a conventional, old school rattle trap, they run a lot flatter, and those baits can be really good. I've caught a pile of fish on them like most people, but because they run so flat, those hooks are actually what catches the grass. And when you snap it, and you snap that grass off of it, it gets the reaction bites. But if that nose will dip down more, kind of like the Yozuri rattling vibe, that bait runs a lot more vertical. It has a real hard, aggressive thump to it, but very interesting. Very interesting. I'm gonna switch it back to that more subtle, and I want to cast it out there and see the difference, see if I can feel the difference, because you could feel it, but even on that back hanger, it's not as aggressive of a thump as I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be more like that rattling vibe or the Wameku Shad, but it's really not. It's aggressive, but it's not as hard of a thump as those ones. Again, it's got that tournament snap on it, so you don't have to worry about it once it's closed. It definitely runs flat, a little flatter on that front line tie. I can still feel that shaking on my casting rod. I can still feel that bait shaking. It's still thumping it. I mean, from the word go. As you stroke it a little bit, it's not quite as hard. I like it. It's not really a hard vibration, good vibration for a lipless bait, but it's not what I'd consider an aggressive lipless crankbait. I'm going to be throwing this thing a lot. I can tell you that. There's different ways to work a lipless bait. You can steady retrieve it, you can kind of pump it, you can slow it down and let it hit the bottom and then kind of tick it off of things. But that's the Wameku Shad by Spro. I'm giving it a thumbs up. I like it. It will get into my arsenal. So the next bait up is going to be the tater hog father. It's kind of a nice slow, really slow retrieve. This is the real slow sink is what I like on these glide baits, because you can count it down a couple feet and you can reel it, and the fish will come up and eat that bait. And what you can do is, as you're reeling that glide bait, I like to be able to stop it and then start and stop it so that bait can kind of dart a little bit, and then it's going to hang around whatever piece of cover you're reeling it by. Oh man. Just on a steady retrieve, that thing is kicking hard. I mean, it's just, if you reel it fast, it stays just up under the surface. You let it sink, it'll go down, you know, a foot or so pretty quick. Let's see, you can count it. I'd say a foot, maybe every 3 seconds, somewhere in that range. So it's a nice slow float. God, just on a steady retrieve, that thing's kicking forth, back and forth about a 1.5 feet or so. You know, when you're throwing these glide baits, when you let them hit, you want to let them hit, kind of settle, and then you're gonna, you know, just start with a steady retrieve so you can get that bait kicking back and forth. Hogfather, dude, that's pretty sick. And here, I'll show you when you go to cast it. Go to cast it out there, let it settle. That thing's just kicking back and forth probably a foot or more, probably 1.5 feet. And you can see my hands kind of starting and stopping. That just gets the bait really kicking hard. You can kind of start and stop it like that, and it'll twitch back and forth. That'll really trigger those fish. So if you throw it past a piece of cover, you know, reel it and get that glide bait going back and forth, and then you get it near that piece of cover and kind of just start and stop. You don't have to move the rod, just start and stop the reel. That glide bait will get kicking hard back and forth. Ha. My tackle box is growing by one swim bait, I can promise you that. That is pretty ridiculous. This is on 20-pound Sunline shooter. That's what I like with most of my bigger glide baits. You don't have to put 30 or anything ridiculously big on there. I mean, that 20 is usually plenty for a swim bait up to about 2 ounces. So now I'm going to throw the mag draft. See what this bad boy's all about. I feel like with this mag draft, you could probably throw a little bit smaller line, maybe 16 sniper or something in that range. I think you could probably throw up to 20 as well. But again, I'm just going to drop it in the water. It's kind of a slow fall. It doesn't sink really fast. I mean, it weighs a lot. This is a lot more subtle bait than I thought it was going to be. I thought this tail was going to kick a lot harder. It's actually more subtle. It's real subtle. It's just got the head barely moves back and forth. The tail kicks pretty good, but it's a little more subtle than I thought it was going to be. Like I said, it doesn't sink real fast. And the tail, it's one thing a lot of people don't realize about these boot tail swim baits, is that the boot tail on most of them is down. And when that boot tail portion is down, what it does is it wants to make the bait rise. It wants to make that bait come up and rise as you're reeling it. And it definitely does that with this mag draft. It wants to kind of kick it up. But I'm sure you could slow this bait down. It's got a relatively slow fall. It's got some buoyancy in the soft plastic itself. Interesting. Definitely more mag draft. Definitely more of a subtle swim bait than I realized. And I can see why a lot of people would work that into their swim bait arsenal, because most of the boot tail stuff is, they're really wild and hard shake to those actions. And I'm expecting that hard action out of this Babe swim bait. The guy from the company that bought the company or started it, bought the molds, he actually gave me a couple of these to try out, and I hadn't tried them yet, so I'm trying them now. But as you can see, it's a line through. It's got a hole right in the nose. It's got the weight right there, kind of in the head, and then it's got a tube that comes out the belly. And then you got your treble hook and a split ring. I would probably put a big Gamakatsu treble hook on there if I was in a tournament. But we're just out here testing, and I'm gonna just tie this bad boy on here. Tie that on there. And then with these line throughs, what you'll do is you bring it down to where it's right at the belly, and then back it up, and then you want to bury one of the trebles in the bottom so it's sitting just like that. So when that fish comes up and eats it, he's gonna get that treble hook in his face somehow. But that thing is very soft. It's got a very nice kick. It does that. Yeah, the head wants to rock back and forth a little bit. Tail's got a real good kick. Just because I know from the Steve Kennedys and Fred Rambanis, the guys that love this, the old school, you reel this thing very slow. This one has some belly weight to it. I'm sure you could mess around with that. This one's a little bit heavier as far as I think than what comes in the Bass Pro one. But as I'm going to throw it out, you're just going to crawl it like this, and it's not going very deep. It's maybe going to go maybe 2 feet or so, I'd guess. Yeah, you're just gonna crawl this thing around out there. I'm probably gonna. He's got all this bank grass around here. I may throw it around this isolated bank grass here. Once I'm done with my session of testing these baits. But again, this thing's real. I don't think you can really burn it too much because it wants to roll over, and that's what the old Bass Pro Shops, when you reel it fast, it wants to kick up on one side or the other. And that's why I think a lot of people kind of slept on that old Bass Pro Shops swim bait, is because when you go to even a medium retrieve and it wants to roll up on its side, but that is where you mess up, because you want to reel that thing really slow. And it just kicks and wobbles, but you have to crawl it. Kicking and wobbling real slow, and it'll run straight, but you just have to reel it real slow, just like that right there. I think that's probably the retrieve just right there. This is a 6-4-1 Tatula 150. I like it because it holds a lot of line. It's bigger, it's got bigger handles on it. But that 150 is what I like for the swim baits. And again, it's a Cashin heavy action swim bait rod, 711. I throw most all my bigger swim baits on this rod. That's why I've been testing these swim baits on it, but that's the Babe right there. I can see why. Yeah, I mean, I don't think you can hardly find one of these bad boys online anymore. They make some, they make this without the weight and insert, so you can put a big swim bait style hook on it with the weight. You know, 3/8 or maybe even a 1/2 ounce if you're fishing it a little bit deeper. But they make this thing in a bigger version too. It's like the 7-inch. They make it in a 9-inch as well. I mean, that's got more rubber than my tennis shoe has on it. But you can see there's a big difference. But while we're already out here, might as well test the old big tennis shoe out as well and see what happens. What you think? I think I'm gonna test it. Again, it goes right through that little line through. That's handy. That's about the easiest line through, that tube that runs through that. I'll put this super big Babe. I think it's a 9-inch. I think that's what they call it. I've thrown the, you know, the Osprey and the Talons. Those are the tried and true bigger line throughs. They had a few other brands that have kind of come and gone. As we fished those tournaments at Amistad and out in California and stuff, kind of got a little work with those, but this is something that has really become more popular, the really big swim baits like that. And there's guys, you know, like Boom Boom and Skeet, these guys that throw these big ones in tournaments. Oh wow, that thing looks like a trout right there. Interesting. The head kicks back and forth, the tail kicks, but it's the same deal. It's definitely a slow retrieve. You won't be able to burn this, not very fast, and it'll start to kick, you know, kind of roll one side or the other. But I don't think that's the deal. I think the deal is to reel it nice and slow, just like that right there, that steady retrieve. So those are my 4 baits that I've been testing out here today. Gonna end up with the big Babe. Be sure to check out more of my videos on the rest of my YouTube channel and click that button, subscribe, and you'll see more testing, more tournament recaps, and more fun stuff on my YouTube page. We'll catch one.